What if I told you a scientist once built a perfect world and used it to predict the end of human civilization? No war, no famine, no predators. Unlimited food, unlimited water, unlimited space to build a home. Every possible need met, forever. It sounds like heaven. But when he opened the door and watched what happened inside, he didn't see paradise. He saw a slow-motion collapse. And decades later, people are still arguing about what it means for us. So, what exactly did he build? What went wrong inside it? And why do some scientists think we might be living through the same experiment right now, just on a much bigger scale? Let's go back to 1968. A researcher named John B. Calhoun built something he called Universe 25. It wasn't a universe at all. It was a metal enclosure about the size of a small room, designed for mice. But this wasn't just a cage. It was engineered to be flawless. Endless food, endless clean water, perfect temperature, no sickness, no predators, nesting material everywhere. Calhoun had already run versions of this experiment before, but this one was built to remove every single obstacle a mouse could ever face in nature. He started with 4 breeding pairs, 8 mice, dropped into Utopia. At first, exactly what you'd expect happened. The population exploded. Every 55 days, it doubled. More mice, more babies, more life. By day 315, the population hit its peak growth rate. Everything looked like success. But here's where things get strange. As the population kept climbing, something in the colony's social fabric began to tear. There was plenty of food, plenty of water, plenty of space to build nests. Nothing was scarce. And yet, mice started acting like resources were running out. Males who couldn't secure territory or status stopped defending anything at all. They withdrew. They gathered in the center of the enclosure in huge, aimless crowds, doing nothing but eating, sleeping, and grooming themselves for hours at a time. Calhoun had a name for them. He called them the beautiful ones. Physically flawless, behaviorally empty. They never fought, they never mated, they never raised young. They simply existed. Then scientists discovered something even more unexpected. The violence didn't disappear, it just moved. Dominant males, unable to establish normal territories in the overcrowding, became increasingly erratic. Attacks became random and senseless, not tied to any real threat. Females, overwhelmed by the constant social pressure, became aggressive towards their own pups. Some abandoned their nests mid-litter. Infant mortality climbed past 90% in the most crowded zones. A colony that had everything it could ever physically need was quietly destroying its own next generation. That's when everything changed. Even after the population growth stalled and then reversed, even after overcrowding eased as mice began dying off, the collapse didn't stop. It didn't level out into a new stable population, the way you'd expect from a normal ecosystem correcting itself. Calhoun watched the birth rate keep falling. Courtship behavior, the complex sequence of actions male and female mice needed to successfully mate, had broken down so completely that the survivors simply stopped reproducing. By day 600, there were no surviving young at all. The population, in Calhoun's own words, doomed to extinction. Universe 25, a world with infinite resources, ended not in famine, but in total behavioral collapse. Every single mouse eventually died. But the real mystery is what caused it, because it wasn't hunger, it wasn't disease, it wasn't predators. The only thing that had actually run out was social space, the number of meaningful roles an individual could hold in a group. Calhoun believed there's a hidden ceiling on how many functioning relationships and identities a social species can sustain, even when physical resources are limitless. He called it a behavioral sink. Once population density crosses that line, normal social behavior doesn't just get strained, it disintegrates.
Now, here's where this gets genuinely uncomfortable. When Calhoun published his findings, they landed at exactly the right cultural moment. The late 1960s and 70s were gripped by fears of overpopulation, urban decay, and rising crime in crowded cities. Politicians and journalists seized on Universe 25 as a warning about human cities. Some researchers ran with a comparison directly, but other scientists pushed back hard, and they had a point worth taking seriously. Mice aren't people. A 2008 review in the Journal of Social History and later critiques from population researchers argued that human societies, unlike Calhoun's sealed metal box, can innovate, migrate, restructure their institutions, and build entirely new kinds of social roles when old ones stop working. We're not trapped behind a wall with no way out. And yet, the discomfort doesn't fully disappear. Because if you strip away the mouse metaphor, Calhoun's deeper finding wasn't really about crowding, it was about meaning. It was about what happens to a social creature when the roles that once gave its life structure, protector, provider, mate, caregiver, quietly become irrelevant. The mice in Universe 25 had every material need satisfied, and nothing left to actually do. Some researchers studying modern loneliness, social withdrawal, and declining birth rates in developed nations have pointed back to Calhoun's work, not as a prediction, but as a warning shaped like a question. What happens to any social species when survival stops requiring effort? Calhoun spent years afterward trying to design a way out, running further experiments to see if some environmental tweak could break the pattern before it took hold. He never fully found one. Once the behavioral sink set in, it seemed to be irreversible. So maybe the real lesson of Universe 25 was never about mice, and never really about overcrowding either. Maybe it's about what happens when a species solves every problem, except the one that mattered most, giving its members something worth striving for. Calhoun built a perfect world with nothing left to fight for, and every single resident of it died anyway. So the question isn't whether we've built our own version of that box. The question is whether we'd even recognize it if we had.